All right, let's get right into one of the most baffling American mysteries. I want you to picture this. It's Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Inside the Sauter family home, things are festive, happy, 10 kids celebrating with their parents. But by the time the sun rises on Christmas morning, that happy home will be the scene of an enduring mystery that we're still talking about today. And that's really the question at the absolute heart of this whole thing. How is it possible for 5 kids to just disappear from a house fire? I mean, a fire breaks out, the family tries to escape, and then there's nothing. No remains, no bone fragments, not a single piece of evidence to say what happened. Just a void where 5 children should have been. So around 1 o'clock in the morning, everything changes. Jenny Sauter wakes up smelling smoke, and she realizes the house is on fire. It's complete chaos. She and her husband, George, manage to get 4 of their children out of the house, but 5 of them, Maurice, Martha, Louie, Jenny, and Betty, are all still trapped upstairs. And when their parents try to rescue them, they're about to run into one bizarre, unbelievable obstacle after another.
The next morning, the house is just gone. It's nothing but a smoldering basement filled with ash. And the official verdict comes in really fast. The authorities declare it was a tragic accident, and the 5 missing kids, they concluded they must have died in the fire. Case closed, right? Well, not for the Sauter family. For them, the real nightmare was just getting started.
You see, right away, the official story starts to fall apart. The fire marshal blamed faulty wiring for the blaze, but George Sauter knew that just wasn't possible. He was thinking, no way. He had just paid to have the entire house professionally rewired and inspected, specifically to make sure it was safe for Christmas. So for him, this wasn't just some small detail. It was the first huge red flag that something was seriously wrong. And this is the absolute core of the mystery. The official explanation was that the fire burned so hot, it basically cremated the children's bodies, leaving nothing behind. But here's the thing about fire science. That's pretty much impossible. Even in professional crematoriums, which are way hotter than a house fire, bones and teeth fragments are always left behind. A house fire just cannot vaporize 5 entire skeletons. And when they sifted through every inch of the Sauter's basement, they found absolutely nothing. Not a bone, not a tooth, nothing. So as the Sauters start putting all these strange little pieces together from that night, their doubt just hardens into certainty. That whole tragic accident theory, it started to look less like a conclusion and more like a really flimsy cover-up for something much, much darker. I mean, just think about this series of events. It's like something out of a movie. To get the kids from the second floor, George runs to get his big, heavy-duty ladder, the one he always kept in the same spot. It was gone. Vanished. So he tries to start his 2 work trucks to pull them up to the window. Neither of them will start, even though they were running perfectly just the day before. They try to call for help, the phone line is dead, and the fire department, they don't show up for 7 agonizing hours. You have to ask, is that just a string of horrible luck, or was this an orchestrated plan? And that dead phone line? It gets even weirder, because just a half hour before the fire broke out, the phone actually did ring. Jenny Sauter answered it. On the other end of the line was a woman she didn't recognize, just laughing, with party noises in the background. Jenny thought it was just a wrong number and hung up. But later on, it was confirmed the phone line hadn't burned or broken. It had been deliberately cut from the outside. So, after that weird phone call, Jenny's trying to get back to sleep when she hears this loud thump on the roof. You know, like something heavy was dropped or thrown up there. In the moment, she didn't think too much of it, but just a few minutes later, the whole house started filling with smoke. That sound, which was forgotten in all the panic, would turn out to be a huge clue. And what was that thump? Well, when the winter snow finally melted away, one of the kids found this strange, rubbery green object in the yard. It was identified as being part of a pineapple bomb, which is a kind of handheld fire starter, like a grenade. And suddenly it all clicks into place with what a passing bus driver had said. He swore he saw people throwing fireballs at the Sauter's house that night. It was becoming clear this was no accident at all. Okay, so if it wasn't an accident, what in the world was it? With all this strange evidence piling up, the family and investigators started looking at new possibilities. And honestly, each one is more disturbing than the last. The whole thing starts to look less like a tragedy and more like a targeted attack. So, why the Sodders? What was the motive? Well, there are a few big theories. A few months earlier, an insurance salesman had gotten really aggressive with George. When George told him no, the man literally threatened him, saying his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed. Another strong theory points to the Italian mafia. George was an Italian immigrant who was very publicly and very vocally critical of Mussolini, and that made him some serious enemies. And the third theory, which might be the most chilling, is that the entire fire was just a diversion, a chaotic cover to kidnap the children. And that kidnapping theory wasn't just speculation. It was fueled by these incredibly painful, tantalizing leads. One woman who ran a hotel nearby swore she saw the children with a strange couple the morning after the fire. Another person said they saw them in a car that was driving by while the house was still burning. Now, none of these sightings were ever confirmed, but for the Sodder family, they were everything. It kept that tiny flame of hope from being extinguished. So, getting no real answers from the authorities, George and Jenny Sodder were convinced their children were still alive somewhere. They basically dedicated the rest of their lives to finding them. Their relentless search became a local legend, a powerful testament to a parent's hope against all odds. And their search wasn't a quiet one. For about 2 decades, they put up this massive billboard right on Route 16. It had the faces of all 5 missing children on it, along with a big reward for any information. If you drove through that area, you couldn't miss it. It was this constant, heartbreaking public reminder that 5 children were still gone, and this case was far from closed. Then, in the 1960s, we're talking more than 20 years after the fire, something incredible happened. A letter shows up in the mail, addressed to Jenny. It had no return address, it was postmarked from Kentucky, and on the back of a photograph inside was this simple, chilling message. The photo was of a young man in his mid-20s, and the resemblance to their son Louis was just uncanny. The same dark curly hair, the same eyes. The family was absolutely convinced it was him. They hired a private investigator to try and track down where the letter came from. But in a twist that just seems to fit this bizarre case perfectly, the investigator took their money and was never heard from again. He just vanished. George Sodder passed away in 1969, never knowing what happened to his 5 children. Jenny lived until 1989, and every single day for the rest of her life, she wore black clothing. It was her constant, silent vigil for her lost family. It was only after she passed away that the family, very reluctantly, finally took that old, weathered billboard down. And that brings us right back to where we started. All these years later, we're left with the same impossible question. Was this just a series of unbelievable, tragic coincidences, the worst luck in the world? Or was this a meticulously planned crime? A conspiracy involving arson, sabotage, and kidnapping so perfectly executed that it's remained unsolved for nearly 80 years? Whatever the truth is, it seems like it was buried in the ashes of that Christmas fire.